I think a lot of it is one, artists got to learn to increase their bandwidth and trust people other than themselves. I love seeing there's the artist-producer relationship that goes really well and really far. You think about Cash Cobain and all his artists, but Connie Diamond had a really solid videographer that's with her to this day, which allowed her to create great, consistent content like over and over, you know? I think consistency was her key. I think same falls on Baby Osama. She was creating, and then this hits on another point. You got to strike a nerve, like, Baby Baby Osama really blew up when she wrote about like an ex, you know, like didn't mean it. Like, I think for a while Connie Diamond was like the voice for a sturdier female, you know, in that community. So I feel like every artist gotta have like a pain song, because then you gotta really like strike the audience chord, because they need a reason to remember you. Like they see so much.
When I'm back in town, up the Hedge tryna find ya. When I lay you down, I'ma really miss your spine up. Know you got the crown, tell me why you tryna find love.
Chris Jacks, thank you for sitting down with us today, man.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem at all. So can you tell us a little bit, you know, where you grew up, a little bit about your background?
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in Rockland County, New York. I guess everybody in this room in New York, that's upstate. It's like my chip on my shoulder. It's not a borough. But, you know, went to school, later college, upstate, Cornell. And then I came back to the city, kind of fell into that ad tech, MarTech world.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell us, how did you get into Cornell? That's you know, an Ivy League school. So congrats on that, first of all.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. My dad went to UPenn. I always wanted to go to UPenn. My math teacher wrote my letter of recommendation to Penn State, so I was like always kind of like bitter at her for that. So,
gotcha.
Lady said apply to a couple more Ivies. Ended up applying undecided to Cornell, and they called me and said, "Do you want to come to our hotel school?"
Gotcha.
Ended up being like a little feeder for African Americans as well, and met a lot of great people there. And yeah, that's how me and like 3 other family members kind of like went in.
Nice, nice. So tell us, was there, you know, what was that like as someone from, you know, the New York area going to Cornell? Was there, you know, a disconnect? Was it like you were right at home? Like, what was that environment like?
I think it was humbling, you know? You're not the smartest guy by a long shot, and you're reminded that regularly. You know, it was humbling, which was good and bad, because I think, you know, like, confidence is everything as well. But, you know, that's where growth takes place.
No, for sure.
So it was good.
And then while you were, tell us about your journey, because I know after college you worked at a...
Where was it? Oh, it was this advertising agency called PSFK.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. It was a small agency.
Okay.
Kind of first, like, you know, enabled ideas and allowed me to think. We sold, like, blue sky ideation to companies and did regular reports on the future, because, like, tech was a big passion of mine.
Okay.
I ended up later leaving there to kind of, like, go see the world, you know, traveled a bit. And then I came back and fell into ad tech. And then I realized I was in the city. I could be like going out every weekend, potentially like buying a table, or like, what if I put like a kid in the studio and tried to have the #1 artist in New York?
Right.
Thought it was something you could throw money at. Later realized you got to build your own marketing engine. And then that kind of naive idea that I could do that, like 5 years later, like that, 6 years later, that's like kind of what put me in like on the road to where I am now.
Gotcha. So tell us a little bit about, before you get into that, what ad tech is. And
yeah, it's just advertising technology. I mean, like, the more, you know, integrated technology becomes, like, obviously we're creating a bunch of data. It's like, how are we selling this data, and then how are we also using it to help focus who our target is and increase our ROI. So a lot of the platforms I worked on worked with, usually in a revenue ops capacity, it was around, you know, connecting all your data sources and then telling a story from your information from there.
That's interesting. So fast forward where you're at today, I see you worked with, you know, Baby Osama, Spliff Happy, Connie Diamond, a lot of these, you know.
Yeah, these are artists I booked for shows, but it's like, and put in the studio at times. But honestly, it's been great to be a part of their journey as early as I was. I think that's what I found a lot of enjoyment was like finding this person, seeing them at 10,000 monthly listeners, and then, linking with them and then seeing them at 100,000 monthly listeners, 6 months later.
Yeah.
And, over time, you build your own wealth of information and you're like, what does this bug of success look like? And then your ideas get more refined and refined over time.
For sure. So give us a little bit of some of those gems of like what made some of these artists so successful today. Like, what did that growth look like? Was there a common thread?
For sure. I think a lot of it is one, artists got to learn to increase their bandwidth and trust people other than themselves. I love seeing there's an artist-producer relationship that goes really well and really far. You think about Cash Cobain and all his artists, but Connie Diamond had a really solid videographer that's with her to this day, which allowed her to create great, consistent content like over and over, I think consistency was her key. I think same falls on Baby Osama. She was creating, and then this hits on another point. You got to strike a nerve. Like Baby Osama really blew up when she wrote about like an ex, like didn't mean it. Like I think for a while Connie Diamond was like the voice for a sturdier female, in that community. So I feel like every artist gotta have like a pain song, because then you gotta really like strike the audience chord, because they need a reason to remember you. Like they see so much.
And it's something like relatable too, something everyone goes through, that like putting yourselves in your fan's shoes. Like, what would you consider yourself when it comes to like the music industry? Like, you're obviously a behind the scenes person, you have the creativity, like explain like your role in terms of how you like to help artists.
I want to break a New York artist, but it's like more of a gamble, and I wanted to increase the likelihood. So I started a platform, Fifth Floor. And what I see there is just like a space that enables creators. Like we hold regular streams, we're helping curate these events, supporting these events, whether financially or just through resources of information and network. And I've seen, because supporting talent like one way just didn't allow me to support, it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
So Fifth Floor allows me to support those artists in the way I want, but in a way that helps grow something that allows me to hopefully grow them larger down the road. So we got a few teams working on like niche content. We throw things at the wall and we see what sticks. You know?
Yeah, that's dope. I mean, tell us this, in the scene, like in New York in general, it seems like there's more and more artists every day, and I don't know, less, I guess on the corporate side there's obviously a lot, but less on the like kind of independent side, less people behind the scenes, right? Like kind of pushing the artists,
It's so hard to find someone who doesn't like rap, make a beat, or is behind the camera.
Yeah.
You know? And it's finding that person who just like wants to work or can see somebody else's vision and can help them get it done. I still don't know where you find those people.
And I kind of get it because, that's one of the reasons I started this company, to be a platform and be something to help, people behind the camera, artists as well. But like a lot of those people, and from experience, they're just worried about adding value. So they kind of get like, stepped on, screwed over a lot, So it's like those people that can really find a home where they're valued and, respected, I feel like they take off, where the artist knows they need them and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like artists, I think sometimes they forget things very quickly,
If it's not directly related to, artists have to be a little selfish, and that's why you can't blame them. You just don't put them in that position to like do something that's not related to them.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us, give maybe from experience from other managers, other people you respect, like how can these managers and people behind the scenes put themselves in a position to make sure they're safe, whether it's contracts, how is that something they can put in place,
To make sure they're safe?
Yeah, and they don't get just like stepped on,
Oh, for sure. I mean, you gotta keep all the passwords. But
Right.
No. I think having that paperwork is important. And if you're adding value, I don't think if you have that fear, then you haven't made yourself invaluable enough.
Yeah. Got you. Yes, really become indispensable.
That's at an early stage. Obviously, you get later you being indispensable, there's still going to be 10 of you because
Yeah.
no one's that unique to a sense, like everyone's going to be able to provide marketing in some capacity across all these channels. But I think earlier on, it's just being indispensable.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that a lot. So talk about some of the people in the music game that are doing some good things right now. Some people like that are making kind of like some new waves. We were talking about 10K projects behind camera.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit about them, some other people to watch out for.
I think they've been a strong, invisible hand, and I think there are a few people like them who say, hey, I get what people are looking at, and then can break it down formulaically, and then apply it to another artist in an abstract way where it's like, this is still them. I think when you ask me who else is like really doing it recently, there's this guy called Dr. Clips.
Okay.
And what's her name? Like K Bands. She might have been up for XXL freshman class this year. There's like a couple, like Your Stepdad is another one, and a few other artists. There's a specific reel format that this Dr. Clips guy has done, which is, it's the reel format that's breaking the artist. It's like, hey, we got to add the lyrics this way. Hey, you do that reverse vignette where it's like glowing, make sure that there's a lot of camera movement, and we're just going to play on all the senses that keep them there. And you're seeing that these artists' reels keep popping up. Naturally, we're listening to it, comes familiar, and now these artists are here to stay.
Interesting. So the key is really kind of optimizing that short form content on a consistent basis with a look that they really like, You
get your own distinct, like you got a distinct sound. Now you need a distinct visual persona as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's the future, right? Like, or in the present, really, of like where it's going. And because I guess that format, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, of shoot your music video, then do a lyric video, and then like do a couple of events around it to build a community. It's not dead. It's just a little bit more complex now. Right?
Yeah, it evolved a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit about your company, what you're doing for artists, because it's definitely very interesting. You clearly have a lot of knowledge on how to help.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like right now, we have our brand page in which through that we post a lot of artist music and kind of try to curate it to a sense of what we think should get heard. Mm-hmm. With that, we have a studio. Like we've always had a studio. Great engineer Manny, been with him like for like 6 years. So it's not just online, it's offline. And then events, we like to support the other people in the underground who are throwing events, and then tie ourselves to them. Yeah. But we do one event each year, which is more of a pop-up, where we invite brands, small panel of speakers, and then artists close it out with some performances at the end.
Nice.
It's like vendor style. It's at this spot in Bed-Stuy on Marcus Garvey called Loudmouth. Really cool spot. Really cool consignment shop. If you're a brand, you should definitely like check it out. So that's mainly, and then like I'm saying, empowering these teams, because I know I can only do so much.
Yeah.
But if this kid likes the game, all right, let me give him a studio every Tuesday, and I'll make your stream screens, and then you make this yours, and you do this every Tuesday, and then you find another person like you, and they'll do it on Wednesday, and you kind of grow like that. So we're starting to fill up our days of for streaming, and then we got all those people who are shooting music videos. I'm like, music videos aren't gonna take you out of here, especially if you want to be an individual. So trying to figure out that niche content. Mm-hmm. People compare it to like PG Lang, I guess I've heard. But it's like, all right, they need short form content. Brands love artists. Why don't you just kind of create that short form content, be the bridge between the brand and the artist, and try to kind of just add your own sense of comedy. I think that will really take off.
I like that. Yeah, that's dope. So who are some of these like artists right now that you're working with? Anyone that you would like to shout out?
Artists that I want to shout out. Artists get their flowers all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Well, how about this then? How about some other underground curators, promoters, managers, people that are also empowering the scene that you're partnering up with?
Yeah. And I would just say like they're in the network, in the community, because like sometimes partnering is just like, they could call you on the phone and like ask questions. It's not like we have regular streams of revenue that we're both making together and breaking bread over. But I really like the studio off record. Mm-hmm. in Manhattan. I think they've produced some like great hits, and I don't know if everyone knows about them, but they're like still in a affordable studio, and I think they're pumping out some of the best engineers. When, you know, like maybe Quad and those are of yesteryear. I really feel like Off Record as an independent studio has become like the studio of now.
Yeah.
Other people, there's a lot of like young organizations, like kids throwing 1,000-person parties. Think they should be a little more financially stable, but I still gotta give them their flowers.
For sure.
You know, you got your Nova Academy, you got your like Lust Hill, Legendary Walk, and like Rockstar Ragers. You know, people who started young and have been consistent. And I think they've set a path for themselves. Like if they stay consistent a little longer than they think they have to, like they're gonna get all that they set out to achieve.
No, I like that. And so, what are some like milestones that you're trying to achieve, like as your company? Like, how does that, like, I guess, ideally look for you?
Yeah, I mean, for my company, I think being able to create the content that I enjoy, which I haven't been able to do yet, but I like being a stickler.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the hardest things to do. And then being able to say, hey, I have a engine where almost any artist who could come in who has decently good music can come in and say, all right, if I create this amount of content in 30 days, I can make a small living off my music. I think that's the type of kind of ecosystem and framework I want to be able to provide an artist.
I like that. I like that a lot. So tell us a little bit about the, we were talking about this, when artists are starting off and they're trying to create a funnel for their marketing, right? Like,
yeah.
We were talking about a pretty much a farm system. I think that's really a unique like way of looking at it. Can you explain that more in depth?
Yeah, when I first like got into the whole, all right, here's my artist, now I need to like create a marketing engine, and this what got me my first like ad clients. There was a tool called Jarvee, and Jarvee allowed for automation. Doesn't exist anymore because things are always updating. But being able to create organic conversations through maybe an inorganic action was our focus. So like, if I had 10 YouTube channels and they all focused on the keyword X and X artist type beat, and then would drop 50 comments a day from those 10 accounts saying, yo, your beats are fire, you should work with artist, drop his link, so the producer has to click on that link. Those are the types of systems where it's like, the artist who's recording every day is not gonna have the bandwidth to think about making something like this, you know? And it's being able to scale that down so an independent artist could have that for themselves.
I love that. That's really smart. And in terms of, let's say you're starting, or someone watching this wants to start a record label tomorrow, like,
yeah,
obviously this is an important person to run a system like this for your artists. Like, what are some other a key foundation in terms of team like you need to get something like that going, would you say?
I would say if you want to start a record label, my first piece of advice would probably be don't.
Okay.
Because it's just like, it seems like a massive risk.
Yeah.
And it's like, unless you could say, hey, I know how to have a hit artist and do it on repeat, then you're really gonna acquire these resources to gamble on an individual. Because, I mean, it's hard to compete with those other marketing budgets out there.
Yeah.
So if I was trying to start something, I'd say start a production company and help these artists create really good content on repeat.
Gotcha.
And then when you get your hit, maybe you say, okay, maybe I want to start a record company. But
I mean, I also think, don't you think there's, in terms of starting a company, even if it's a record label, like you have to be a little bit more, I guess, conservative in terms of how it operates, right? Like more single deals, more partnerships with other labels, you know, work with other managers. Like you kind of have to be your own ecosystem before you get to that level, you know?
for sure.
Like you kind of have to hedge your bets. I feel like people throw too much resources on one thing without enough contingencies.
I think so too. They're like, yeah, this will take us out of here. We spend all our money on this feature. This will take us out of here. What I find artists don't like to do is spend money on features on artists that are smaller than them.
Yeah.
Where they can get a discount and then leverage their audience.
What's your main goal for 2024, my friend? What are you trying to accomplish?
2024. I recently got added to Bianca Bonnie's team under FR. I appreciate him.
Nice.
I want to help this girl make $100 million.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Very
That'd be
good
my
goal.
one goal. Yeah.
That's awesome. Any artists watching this, a few pieces of advice, or people in the music industry in general, from your journey so far?
A piece of advice or a thank to people?
Say more of a piece of advice.
A piece of advice?
And then you can thank right after.
A piece of advice, I say, like, you can spend a lot of time planning, but spend more time doing.
Yeah.
And then the plans will get better from there.
I like that.
And who I'd like to thank? Shakezdaghetto, obviously. Thank you for having me. And then the other, movers and shakers in the industry, like Coe from Talk of the Town, for sure. Christian Igator, he was an early mentor. Yeah, those are the main ones right now.
Thank you.